It's a great day in Albany. I'm proud to announce that the only March Madness is on a basketball floor this year. There's nothing but good things here today in the Capitol. So the order of speaking, I will start with Senator Skelos, Speaker Silver, then Senator Sampson, then Assemblymember Brian Kolb, Minority Leader Brian Kolb, then the Governor. Senator?
Thank you very much. I'll be quick because I know the Governor is very anxious to get up here. But I'm delighted. This is the first time I've had the opportunity as Majority Leader to negotiate a budget. And I just want to comment, Governor, that the tone that you established this year with the legislature, the Speaker, myself, the two leaders, John Sampson, Brian Kolb, I think has worked well for the people of the state of New York as we announce an agreement this afternoon and the passage of what we believe will be an early budget, not just an on-time budget, but an early budget. The priorities for the Senate Republican Conference has been to cut government spending. That's been the priority of the people of the state of New York. To cut taxes, priority of the people of the state of New York, and really to empower the private sector by these actions to create jobs and to send a message to the business community that New York State is prepared to work with you, not stand in your way, for the creation of jobs. The other thing that I'm delighted about the way the process has worked, and through the Governor's leadership, if you look at the word dysfunction and you eliminate the first three words, DYS, you have function. And New York State government is now functioning well in a bipartisan basis. So, Governor, I congratulate you on your first budget and the fact that it's going to be an early budget.
Thank you. Yours too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your very generous introduction, Lieutenant Governor.
It was economic.
I just want to speak for the Assembly majority, commend the Governor for his leadership in bringing about this agreement. I finally had two people, two rookies, who would listen to me for a change. But really, they provided us with an executive budget that was strong and firmly grounded in reality. My colleagues and I have been assuring New Yorkers since the Governor took office that a balanced, fiscally responsible budget that protects the most vulnerable among us was our first and foremost priority, and that it will be delivered on time. From the beginning, the majority has been committed to working with the Governor, with our colleagues in the Senate, in the spirit of bipartisanship, to tackle the budget crisis head-on and to put New York back on the track to healthy job growth and economic prosperity. This is a sobering budget, unquestionably. Government had to tighten its belt with the same sense of urgency that working families have been tightening their belts since the economy went into free fall in 2008. From the Assembly majority standpoint, the sole consolation is that working with the Governor, we're able to achieve critical restorations which will soften the cuts affecting working families, our senior citizens, our most vulnerable populations, and the children in our classrooms. Certainly, we support the Governor's economic development strategy, particularly the plan to spur job development in upstate New York. Regarding health care, the largest component of the budget, we have taken a balanced approach that places controls on the long-term growth of our Medicaid program, while also guaranteeing a living wage for the majority of our home care workforce. Although the millionaire's tax is not in the budget, we still hope to convince our partners it's the right thing to do. A budget is about priorities and compromise, so again, I want to commend the governor for his great leadership in this budget. And we hope that once this budget is enacted, we can continue that successful partnership and move forward with equal determination on issues that matter most to all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Well said.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I just want to commend my colleagues, but most of all, Governor, I want to commend you on your leadership by putting us back on the right track. As Senator Skelos was talking about a functional government, and basically we are turning the corner, but there are still outstanding issues that we need to deal with, Governor, and I know you remain committed to it, such as rent regulations, redistricting, mandate relief. We're talking about property tax cap and ethics reform. If we're truly going to turn the corner and go back to a functioning government and restoring the faith, the trust, and confidence, we too need to deal with those issues. But we have an excellent start by dealing with this budget here today. And Governor, I want to commend you on your leadership. As Senator Skelos said and my colleague said, there's no new taxes. The issue with respect to the millionaire's tax, and we talk about shared sacrifice, we want to make sure there is truly shared sacrifice amongst all of us, especially those who are given the advantage to excel and exceed here in New York. But Governor, I want to commend you once again on your true leadership, putting us on the road to fiscal recovery and reform, which is so important. And I'm quite sure once we get finished with this stage, then the other stages will just be as succinct and working together in a bipartisan fashion. Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, certainly what you've heard so far is that this is a difficult budget to put together. I don't think it's any easier this year than it's been in prior years, but difficult decisions have to be made. And it's not really about identifying winners and losers. This is about trying to provide a spending plan in very difficult economic circumstances. I think each of the legislators that are here today and the legislators that will be voting on this budget will all would say we might do it a little bit different if we could do it by ourselves. But certainly that's not what this legislative government is about. It's about a strong executive led by Governor Cuomo and Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy and his administration. You've got 212 legislators that are trying to represent the districts that they live and work in, and it's not easy. And also, as Senator Sampson said, we've got a lot of work still to do. This problem wasn't created overnight, and it's not going to be cured in one budget cycle. I think today, are saying we've made a strong step forward. Certainly our conference is prepared to look at this budget, vote on this budget, and we'll see what the eventual outcome is in the next couple days. But certainly Governor Cuomo has shown extremely strong leadership in bringing all the conferences together in terms of dialogue, communication, and also trying to present his vision out how he sees New York State having to get its spending plan under control. No new taxes is a big deal. I think that's one clear message we have to send to the taxpayers, whether you're a business, whether you're a homeowner, whether you're a resident, whether your kids in school, is we have been taxed enough. We have to look at controlling our spending, sending a message to the rest of New York that, yes, it's difficult. Yes, no one likes to reduce the help that New York State has given very generously over the years, but this is a different time and we have to react differently. So again, I think going forward, we still have a lot more work to do, a lot more things to fix, and we got over 800,000 New Yorkers to get back to work, and that's our number one priority once we get this spending plan in place. So, Governor, thank you, and great job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. First, to my colleagues from the Senate and the Assembly, it's a pleasure to welcome them here today and thank them for the great work that they did. And I'll have more of that in a moment. First, we had some sobering news, two pieces of sobering news this weekend, as you know. First, we lost a state police officer, a trooper in Buffalo, Trooper Dobson, who leaves behind 3 children, who was doing his job and lost his life when he was killed at a traffic stop. And that's a point to remember how the men and women of law enforcement put their lives on the line every day. And we recall that, and our best wishes to his family. Second, we lost a great New York character, leader, Geraldine Ferraro. She was a personal friend of mine. There's a picture on the inside in my office, which the speaker had mentioned. And we lost Geraldine Ferraro. Geraldine Ferraro was very helpful to me for many years. And for those of you who didn't have a chance to meet her, she was all positive energy. And she was all, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And she supported me in my governor's campaign. And I remember saying to her once, I said, you know, Geraldine, this is hard. This is really hard. There's a lot to do. And Albany is a mess in a lot of ways. And she said, oh, it is. But we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. And I said, well, do you have any tips, Gerald, any clues? Oh, no, she said, but you'll do it. You'll do it. We're going to make it work because it's New York, and we're going to make it work. Well, today, we figured it out, and we made it work. And the state of New York is going to pass a budget. The budget should be on time. Hopefully, as the senator said, the budget is early, and we'll be striving for that. But the state passed the budget. Now, you would say, well, that's no big deal, except it is. It is a big deal when this state passes a budget on time. It's an exceptionally big deal when the state passes the budget on time under these circumstances, because this was a very, very hard budget to do. And this was a very ambitious budget. It didn't set out to just recalculate numbers and justify numbers. It set out to transform the way we do business in the midst of a very difficult economic time. You look at the numbers, closing a $10 billion gap with no new taxes, no borrowing. That is a huge undertaking. State government will have a 10% reduction, and it will be shared between the executive, the Attorney General's office, the Comptroller's office, and the Office of the Court Administration. We've also made an adjustment in that budget. We capped the long-term spending. So not only do we recalibrate for this year, but next year we have limits on the increase in Medicaid and education. These are two-year appropriations, so the deficit next year goes from $15 billion down to $2 billion. This budget also had some real policy initiatives that are going to make a striking difference. The changing of the permanent law going forward. We have consolidations, a new Department for Financial Services, the Power for Jobs bill. You know that bill? Power for Jobs bill was actually renewed and is made permanent in this bill. So a lot of good work. We'll be closing 3,700 prison cells across the state. That's going to be difficult, but it's necessary. So it's a budget that is honest and aggressive as a budget. It is a policy reform document that is aggressive. And we did both at the same time. My applause, my congratulations goes to the New York State Legislature. And I can't tell you how happy I am to say that. As I've said before, I grew up in a home that cherished public service. And my vision of the New York State Legislature is that it's the best legislative body in the nation, and historically has been a leader in the nation. And it was my pleasure to work with this body on this very difficult effort, and with the leadership of the Senate Majority Leader, who was a full partner in this effort, and who worked with this conference and worked with my administration in good faith and partnership, and the partnership of Speaker Silver, working with his conference. We worked through very, very difficult issues. We not only got it done, but we got a great piece of work done. I believe that. And I want to thank them for their collegiality and their friendship. This was hard. I know it was hard. And they went the extra mile, and they got it done, and I applaud them. And as was said before, I hope this is the template for a new era of cooperation and productivity between the executive and the legislature. I'm hoping that this spirit of love and euphoria that I feel is infectious and grows and continues. Do you feel it, Dean?
I feel it.
Do you feel it? Do you feel it, Shelley?
We hope you keep
So that is very good news. But most of all, it's good news for the people of the state of New York. I refer to this budget as the people's budget. I am a new governor. The ideas in this budget I got from the people of this state. During the campaign, I've been all over this state, speaking to everyone, and the people wrote this budget. And this budget brings the power back to the people. This makes government work for the people. This is a budget that's not about the special interests. It's not about the lobbyists. It actually performs for the people of this state. And for them to have this product and this budget, and for them to see their government functioning this way, it's a new day in New York. And we said we set out to build a new New York, and this is the first step down that road. Last point, I'd like to thank three people who worked really extraordinarily hard. I'll make it four. Robert Mahika, Dean Foulahan, and Larry Schwartz and Bob Megna, who I don't know how they're standing at this point, given the lack of sleep that they have had. But they've done an extraordinary job, and I want to thank them, and I want to thank everyone involved. Let's give them a round of applause. Any questions?
What's in the budget?
You want to know everything, Ken. Yeah, that's the budget.
What's the overall budget? Also, where did you come down on issues like education, med mal, the prisons? How are those?
Do you have a copy of the release?
No.
Okay, let me just go through it with you.
They're in your email, we'll distribute them now.
You have a clue? Let me just, for those of you who don't want to wait, here are the rough facts. The budget is approximately $132.5 billion. The recent changes, well, let's do it this way. Just over $132.5 billion. It will reduce overall spending by over 2% from the current year. Okay, so year to year, overall spending goes down. 3,700 prison beds will be closed. We originally were talking about 3,500 prison beds. It will be 3,700 prison beds. The prison beds, the prisons that will be closed will be balanced geographically across the state. The administration will make the decision on prison closings. It will do it in consultation with the legislature. The Regional Economic Development Councils, you know about, $130 million funding for that, the performance funding for education. You know about redesigning Medicaid and capping next year's education and Medicaid spending, as we discussed, at 4%, personal income growth, and healthcare CPI. Recent changes to the budget include an additional $272 million in education. In that $272 million in education, that includes restoration of the 4201 schools for the deaf and blind and summer school special education. Human services funding was restored at $91 million, and $86 million was restored for higher education, including SUNY hospitals, SUNY and CUNY community colleges. We also restored $15 million for homeless programs. There are miscellaneous program additions of $33 million, including aid to localities and agricultural programs. The Office of Court Administration had its budget reduced by $170 million. As I said in my budget presentation, the state executive is taking a 10% reduction, the Attorney General is taking a 10% reduction, the Comptroller's Office is taking a 10% reduction, and my position was the Office of Court Administration should take a similar reduction. So their budget is going to be reduced to $170 million. There are $54 million in miscellaneous cuts. As a result, the spending of the budget increases approximately $250 million from the original proposal. I'm sorry? Med-mal caps are not in there. Living wage is, and the NIF fund is. The med-mal caps were, through the negotiations, we determined to omit the med-mal caps at this time.
Why not?
Why not? There's disagreement about whether what the net effect of the caps was.
What does that do to the overall deal? The hospitals are putting quite a bit of resources pushing the Medicaid plan. Are they still happy with this deal now that
Yes.
that it got that?
Yes. The overall deal is exactly as it was. Medicaid is reduced about $2.8 billion. There is a state cap on the amount the state will spend. By this agreement, the Department of Health has what you guys call the superpower, where the Department of Health can reduce costs if the cap is in danger of being violated.
To the state workforce?
That, Mike, is a different discussion than this and a different track, and I can get you an update on that tomorrow.
Did you say that the indemnity fund is in,
Yes.
but the cap for med-mal is out?
Yes.
So won't the hospitals then, the idea that they have is that their offset of the cap, of the 4% cap that they would agree to of cutting their own costs would be offset by long-term savings in their insurance. Doesn't this put that out of balance?
Yeah. Well, they also have, there are a number of adjustments that were made, but the basic concept for the hospital was that their cost of operations would be reduced and will be reduced from a liability point of view by two mechanisms. One would be caps on the amount of awards. The second is the fund, which for neurologically impaired infants, which would absorb the costs. The way the fund is structured, their belief, our belief, is the fund is the primary vehicle that's going to reduce those costs.
Is there any other reform in there? Not caps, but any other type?
No.
What was the outcome
Spending
of
by $250 million, but hold the all funds budget the same as 132.5.
Roughly. That's why I said roughly.
Governor, what's become of the
Yes, that's his question. Yes, it's up 250.
Governor, what's become of the idea of your economic development councils that would be headed by the lieutenant governor?
They will be headed by the lieutenant governor. We propose funding at $130 million, and they'll be funded at $130 million.
Will the legislature have any role in approving any of the projects or any role in the councils at all?
They won't have a formal role, but they are our partners, and we'll be consulting them. They know the regions very well, and in the spirit of partnership and cooperation, we'd be working together.
Is that $130 million the same source as it was prior, in terms of you were going to take the capital?
No, we did not take the capital funds from the legislature. Just from the assembly, we took the
So
capital.
where did the $130 million come from?
I know. I was doing so well up to that.
That's what Pataki did anyway. Where did the $130 million come from then?
Within the budget, we found savings.
So, Governor, the neurologically impaired fund is in the budget.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry if I confused you.
Senior centers in New York City, is that Title 20?
We restored $91 million in social service spending, and senior citizen centers will be included in that. The legislature still has some more work to do in refining what will be added and what will not be, what will be added. Human services was $91 million, 86 for higher education. $15 million more for the homeless is a specific amount that will be added.
Governor, will the hospital still pay an assessment that reaches $170 million? Still going to pay an assessment on the inpatient revenue, even though med-mal costs aren't in this?
Does anyone know who's here? I believe so.
It goes down to 30 million, Governor.
30 million.
Governor, what do you mean by geographic balance on the prison closure plan? Is it, as the senator suggested, 3 in Democratic communities and 3 in Republican communities?
I mean balanced geographically.
So do you have a formula, one in New York City?
No formula. First, you have criteria because you're operating a prison system, right? Second, you have a political economic overlay. When you close a prison in upstate New York, the economic consequences are dramatic. So the challenge is to accomplish what we need to accomplish for the prison system and the state, and do it in a way that doesn't hurt the economics in different regions of this state. And that's the balance that has to be reached. I'm confident that the administration can find that balance. I'll be working in consultation with the legislature to find that balance. And we will be doing that expeditiously. There will be, excuse me one second, there will be no task force or commission, which we originally had talked about. I think basically this was Senator Skelos' issue, so I'll let him speak to it. But we were trying to find a vehicle, and it was getting very complicated, and precautions, and how do you write it, and laying out criteria. So we went the other way, and we said, how about we do it as colleagues? And we do it as colleagues, and we understand the problem, and we'll trust each other, and we'll work it out.
Where's the extra 200 beds? Why did you add to the number?
Because it's savings. The more beds, the more savings. We needed savings.
Now, did you have a breakdown on how much of the SUNY CUNY addition goes to operating aid, and you also have a breakdown for how much more would be going to the city?
We'll have that tomorrow for you.
Governor, getting back to the prison issue, could you discuss a little bit what the timetable is you would have for recommending?
I think it's 30 days. Didn't we say 30 days? 60? 30 or 60?
You still have the 1 year,
Does anybody remember? No.
so that's gone?
60?
When will there be a vote on this?
The 1 year is off. And the notice for juvenile justice facilities is also, Mr. Schwartz, 60 days.
Did you also demand $70 million savings from the court? And do you care where it comes from exactly?
Demand is a hard word. Yeah. What I requested, beseech the court, is they are part of the state government. The state government executive, attorney general, controller are taking a 10% reduction. The Office of Court Administration has a very large budget. You could argue that it's easier to take a reduction in a large budget. So we asked for an additional reduction of $170 million.
How was that message received by the court?
You'll have to ask the court.
Governor, do you have in terms of the school aid restoration breakdown, how much of that is going upstate, how much downstate to the city?
It's regionally balanced, and I guess you could have a breakdown tomorrow.
When will there be
It also has the 4201 schools in it, the schools for the deaf and blind. It also has the summer employment programs in it.
Governor, is every detail of the budget closed down now?
Well, the conference committees will still meet, and they have work to do. But have we spent a lot of time going through this, and do we have a definitive framework? Yes.
There's nothing to blow this up.
Well, sometimes Dean, but no.
Last week that there is no agreement until there's an agreement? I mean, in other words, you have still things that have to be worked out. So is this a final deal then?
This is an agreement. I said there's no agreement until there's an agreement, and this is an agreement, Liz.
But there was supposed to be a conceptual agreement.
Yes, but I said that'd be a conceptual agreement.
So this is actually a definitive framework.
This is an actual agreement. Yes. Yes. Let's do it again. There's no agreement until there's an agreement. We will start, that's why we said we hope. We still have more work to do. People need a little sleep. We hope to start sending the bills up on Tuesday. Therefore, depending on the timing of that process, in theory, we could have an early budget, which would be great. And we're shooting for that. And we're cautiously optimistic. You like that phrase, cautiously optimistic.
Always optimistic.
Always optimistic.
Governor, last week you said you were realistic in terms of getting an on-time budget, thinking it might not happen. Thursday you released that web video suggesting there could be a government shutdown if you can't come to a budget agreement. What changed in the last couple of days?
We came to an agreement.
Tomorrow's video.
Yeah.
So do you think that spurred your the legislators here?
I don't
to
know.
work?
I don't know. All I know is I wouldn't want to try it any other way.
Just on the prisons, just one more question. The 3,700 beds, A, do we know how many prisons that would be? And B, do you still have the economic development money in there for the communities that lose prisons?
A, no. B, yes. Speaker Silver, Mr. Dick, right there for you.
Yes, Mr. Dick.
There are many Democrats in your conference who are happy with the cuts in the budget and who would have liked to have seen a millionaire tax. Do you expect the overwhelming number of your fellow Democrats to vote for the budget?
Yes, I do. We worked hard together. I hope to convince my partners in government going forward that it's the right thing to do. And, but again, I've always told you, we don't draw lines in the sand.
So if any other,
Sometimes some of us draw lines.
but if any other members decide then that they can't vote for this budget because there's no rent control in it, for example, I mean, are you gonna be upset with them? Are you gonna urge them to vote yes? Are you gonna make this into a leadership issue, or are you gonna allow people to vote their conscience on this?
Everybody votes their conscience in my conference.
That's a nice quote. Senator, you want to make, you want to you good?
I think one of the, what's very important here is with the prison closure situation, and again, I go back to the tone that's been established in these negotiations, there's also a trust factor that I think is developing in a very positive way, that we've had conversations with the governor. We all understand that the beds have to be reduced, and I think we're going to look at it critically with the lead of the governor to make sure that it's done in a smart way, and as the governor said, not destroying the economy of any one area. I'm also very happy, and I think you've seen it in the press release, that the governor will be putting an advisory group together in order to have a discussion and coming hopefully to a conclusion in having UB 2020 and empowerment before the end of this legislative session.
Just put an exclamation point in that. The UB 2020 project is very important to many of us. The senator was trying to find a way to include the UB 2020 in the budget. We couldn't find a way to include it in the budget. What we did say is I would host a summit on UB 2020 with all the respective parties for the purpose of figuring out how to get the project going, finally. So it's my pleasure to be doing that. Any other questions?
What was the last issue that got closed down?
UB 2020 and closing down, and can we get it in the budget, or can we do a summit to make it happen?
Capital money that the legislature is going to keep, is that going to be $130 million for them, or is it some other number, or do you know?
Say that again?
How much money, you're not taking the capital money away from the legislature to make the Economic Development Council, so, but how much money will they have?
That is economic development money that they had to begin with, right?
Commitments.
Right. Many of those dollars are already committed to other projects. So when we first did the budget, we swept the accounts. Some would say we swept everything in the accounts. That would not be wholly inaccurate. And many of those funds were committed. So the $130 million economic development funds for the legislature will leave, and we've identified an additional funding for $130 million in capital for the Economic Development Councils.
Speaker Silver, do you feel you lost your best leverage on rent control by not including it in the budget?
No, I don't. Not at all. I think we have the governor's commitment on rent control that he will move forward beyond the budget. It was something I always said. We need a timely budget in this state. There are enough issues out there that rent can be a part of, and the governor has committed to doing a renewal and enhancement of rent as we see it. So there is time. The existing program does not expire until June 15th, and I know that reasonable people before that period of time, and hopefully early, will come to an agreement on it.
Is UB 2020 among those issues that it could be tied to?
Well, let's be very clear about UB 2020. I support the university being one of the centers of economic growth in Buffalo. As a matter of fact, if you look at the model of SUNY Albany, we have provided significant capital as the Assembly over the years to make it the center of economic growth here in Albany. We've done it in the current system. We've done it without raising tuition inordinately in the Albany school. And as a matter of fact, in Buffalo, we've made tremendous contributions to public-private partnership in the medical corridor in Buffalo with the support of the Assembly delegation and the Assembly majority over a long period of time. So a lot of what we talk about in UB 2020 is already in the work. There is a new president of at Buffalo, and I would be delighted to sit and meet with the new president and get his vision on how we move forward to enhance the ability of the university to be the center of economic growth for the city of Buffalo and Western New York.
Speaker, mid and out caps, is that something your conference is not going along with?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, will there be messages of necessity?
Sometimes it's a short conversation. I'm sorry?
Messages of necessity?
There may be one required, especially if we want to get it done early. The on the rent, Ken, and I think Elizabeth said, well, could people vote against the budget because rent wasn't in the budget? As soon as you say that statement, a little bell should ring. Rent has nothing to do with the budget, right? Things that are supposed to be in the budget are things that are supposed to be in the budget. Now, what has happened in the past is there's been such dysfunction in Albany that people said, well, something is happening. If you want to get anything done, you have to attach it to the something that is happening, and that's the budget, because the budget, they had to get done sooner or later. But there's no, if anything, it's inappropriate to be taking rent, which is a separate matter. Now, we had conversations and said, look, as long as we're spending all this quality time together and we enjoy each other's company, why don't we see how many issues we can discuss? At one point, frankly, you then overload the situation because each of these is very complex. So there was conversation about it. But for someone to say, well, I'm going to vote against the budget because it didn't have rent in it. No, it was never supposed to have rent in it. We'll do rent as a separate law. You know, it didn't have marriage equality in it either. It didn't have ethics in it either. Why? Because these are different matters to be taken up independently. Okay, I have one last point. We've talked about what we have done and what we've accomplished. What is equally important is what we didn't do, right? There's always a positive and a negative. You've seen what we've done, but look at what we avoided. Congratulations to the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader. What could have been, Shelley? What could have been?
That's good. At least the boats are equal now.
My boat is bigger.
That's great.
Well done, my friends. Congratulations.